welcome to the Women in Investing panel discussion. So today I'm joined by Charlotte and Laura, and we're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a woman in the investing space. Charlotte and Laura, if you don't mind sort of just introducing yourselves briefly and telling us a little bit about yourselves. So Charlotte, if you want to kick off.
Yeah, so my name's Charlotte Jessup. I run Looking After Your Pennies. That's my website, social handles, that sort of thing. I live in sleepy Norfolk. I've got 2 kids. I've been a teacher for a long time, and now I kind of talk about money and personal finance, and really hope just to be a role model for other women out there, but also for my own daughters as well, to make sure they get their finances right too.
Nice. Laura?
Hi, everybody. So my name is Laura Ann Moore, and I am a money mindset expert / financial wellbeing coach. And I'm the founder of Mind, Money, Soul, which is a platform and a podcast, which the focus is really on helping women to feel good about money and like build wealth confidently. So I do a lot of speaking, I do a lot of one-to-ones, but the whole thing is around making money fun and jargon-free and judgment-free, and helping us girlies get money.
Nice. And just a quick word about me. I'm Anna, and I'm a chartered accountant by profession, but I also talk about money online. So beginners investing, getting out of debt and making money. So we're all sort of in this same financial creator space. And happy International Women's Day, because we are here to sort of celebrate that. So to you guys and to everyone watching. And we are obviously here with the help of XTB. So XTB have actually just recently introduced a new product called investment plans. So these offer an excellent strategy for long-term and passive investing, where you have the flexibility to design a personalized portfolio that aligns with your risk tolerance, industry preferences, or regional coverage, essentially. And in addition to that, they have a new auto invest feature, which also allows you to automate topping up to provide adaptability to your changing investment goals and changing needs. So if you are interested and you haven't already, you can download the XTB app in the App Store to get you started with investment plans. So talking of getting started with investing and investment plans, could you guys tell me, how did you get started investing, get into investing, and sort of what actually made you want to document your journey and educate others about it? Because not everyone does that. A lot of people just sort of start investing and that's it, and they have no interest educating others. So Laura, I'm going to kick off with you on this one.
So my intro to investing is actually quite a funny one, because I started documenting my finance journey online on Instagram, on my blog, and it was really focused on saving and money management, because I'd saved 40 grand and I was like, I wanted to tell people about it, and it was really helping people, but it had nothing to do with like investing, building wealth, that kind of thing. And then I went on a date with a guy, and we were talking really openly about money, which was really cool. And he said to me, do you know, by having all of this money saved in cash, you are actually losing money? And obviously my ears pricked up, and I was like, what do you mean? And he explained like the initial, I guess, concept of investing to me. And then that was enough to spark me wanting to look into it more. So I ended up, at this point, I already had an Instagram. So I like put on my Instagram, like, does anyone really know about investing? And 2 things happened. I had one guy reach out who was a wealth manager, and he was like, I agree. I think the language is really confusing. It's not aimed at women. It's not, it's hard to understand. Let's go for a drink and I'll tell you everything I know. So we did. And he literally told me everything, which was amazing. And I was like, why aren't more people doing this? Like, it felt, once you understand the concepts, I was like, so that happened. And then I also read an article or a piece of research from Fidelity called Women and Money. And it explained a lot about investing, why women aren't investing as much, all of that. And those 2 things were enough for me I ended up doing probably about a year of research until I felt confident enough to start investing. And then when I did, And I guess I built up, like when you start doing it, that's what builds your confidence, right? And then that kind of, rolled along. And as I shared stuff on Instagram stories, people were obviously like, what? And, that sparked interest. So I guess my intro to it was just by talking to people who happened to be men, because they were already doing it and they were in that world. And then what made me want to document it is realizing how easy it was, but how there was such a gap between the knowledge and women actually doing it. And I felt like I could plug or be part of that change and plug that gap. And that's what made me, start to document it online. So that was a couple of years ago now, and I've never looked back.
Yeah, me too. Charlotte?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because my approach to it is kind of similar to yours, Laura, except it didn't start with a date. It was just like on my own. But I started talking about finance when I was on maternity leave with my youngest daughter. And so I was in this world of like making my money go further. I didn't have at least I didn't have as much of it as I was used to having. And I wanted to just give my kids like the best start and do all these things. So I've been doing lots of research, and my friends were getting bored of me chatting money to them. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll take this online and find some strangers that are willing to listen to me. So I started actually my blog and my socials and that sort of thing before I started investing. And obviously, once you're in that space, you start seeing other people talking about these things. I started reading more books, and it's hard to find a kind of a finance book that doesn't at least touch on investing in some way. And then I was like, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to myself and to the people that are following me if I don't try and understand this space and try and break this down into a way that my audience understands as well. So I think one of the key books for me that kind of gave me the confidence to step into investing was I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. And the UK version of that, and it was just literally like, just shove it in here and then you'll be fine. And I was like, oh, I can do that. I can do that. And then as my knowledge grew over time, I guess I felt more confident to make decisions that were more aligned with my own preferences, morals, ethics, and all of these sorts of things. So it was a journey. And again, it felt right, just like Laura said, around that needing to role model and show up and change the language.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I also had a sort of similar start in terms of I'd heard people talking about it, and I'd heard one of my ex-boyfriends sort of talking about it, and I knew that he was investing, and I never felt, again, confident enough to do it. I just felt like it was something so complicated. And then for me, the sort of wanting to share this with other people and document the journey, it sort of came by accident a little bit, because I wanted to sort of inspire people to get a hold of their finances. So I actually started talking to people at work. So I was doing this part-time job on top of my full-time job as an accountant, where everyone knows about money. So no one really talks about it, but I was working in like a restaurant bar, and I started talking to people about, paying off debt, making extra money and investing. And all these people were like, oh my God, like this is so helpful. Thank you. And that kind of like gave me this spark of like, wow, like I feel great helping people. So maybe I should take it online and like help some more people. And then it just sort of snowballed from there. So it's sort of similar, just not enough people in the space, not enough people know about it, and wanting to get into it. So, and in terms of how I started, when I got into that whole wanting to make more money, save money, pay off debt, I naturally came into the financial world online. And then I asked my ex-boyfriend, like, how do you do it? How do you invest? Like, how do I get started? Because I still felt it was a bit overwhelming. I think there's more info now online of how to get started, but it felt like, okay, there's so many platforms. How do I choose one? How do I choose what to invest in and all of this stuff? So very cautiously sort of started just with ETFs, because that was all I felt confident doing at the start. So yeah. Why do you guys think we typically see fewer women investing than men? Because we all sort of touched upon this, and I noticed we all spoke about how some part of our initial journey started with a guy, sort of talking about investing. So why do you think we see fewer women? Do you think there are any stigmas, stereotypes, or just general barriers that enable this?
Lead on this one. So I think you have to consider, first of all, things like gender pay gaps, the fact that women have less disposable cash to even start to invest. Like as a mum, I'm looking after my kids. So for me, it's like, I'll invest later. And it's only because I'm in this space that I actually prioritize these things. But you can understand how it becomes, feeding yourself, your kids, when you've got less money, has to go top of that pile. So I think that is such an important factor in all of this anyway. And we're earning less money, we're not investing through pensions as much, and all of this is impacting on women as investors. And then on top of that, you also have the language that is used when speaking about finance with women. And I think it was Starling Bank that did a study on this, that said that when we, finance messaging to men is all about building wealth and, investing and, taking risks. Whereas for women, it's about saving money and budgeting. And I think, when Laura and I both talked about our journeys, we both entered into the finance space with that messaging. And I think as our knowledge has extended, we've kind of gone, oh, actually, we need to be talking about, wealth building and investing and those elements of finance. So I think it's very much, multi, it's different things that are happening here that have all come together to, see women not so much as investors as men.
Yeah. And I think also, just to add to that, like two things. So touching on this idea around obviously the gender pay gap and how women have less like disposable income, what we also have to look at is women having to uphold society's beauty standards, so that the smaller amount of money that we do have is we're getting pushed these messages that in society that we're not good enough as we are. We need to shave, we need to get our face Botox, we need to have all the latest clothes for us to even, we've got to wear makeup, we've got to keep up. And whether we like it or not, that's like an underlying factor that then eats into that. So you've kind of got that element. And then also, like touching on what Charlotte said about the gendered language, money is so emotional that language is so important, right? The way that we view ourselves when it comes to money, it ends up becoming a bit of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you've grown up, bearing in mind the fact that women have been left out of the conversation of money for hundreds of years, we've only been able to have our own bank accounts like 50, 60, 70 years ago. And that's so new in regards to like the terms of money. And then if we're like that report showed, the language being pushed to women is like save, splurge, cut back the pennies, you end up growing up and viewing yourself through that lens. And naturally that language then makes you, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So naturally that ends up affecting the way that you see yourself, the way that you see yourself as spending. And when it comes to investing, I think women get told that they have to be, more risk averse, they need to be more careful, and then that seeps into your psyche as well. So I think there's so many different things at play, but a lot of it starts from like the moment you're born and the messages that are pushed to you. So by the time you do get to the point where you're meant to be investing, you're like, is it just for men? Like, you don't see people that look like you doing it. Any time I speak to anybody in my community, they're like, oh no, investing is for men. They imagine just like old white rich dudes. So I think there's a lot of narratives in society and in the financial services world that make women feel less confident when it comes to investing.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. And you sort of touched about the risk aversion, and I think that's a big thing. And I remember reading, it was a few years ago now, there was a study done which actually sort of showed that yes, less women invest than men generally, but when they do, they perform better because they take less risky decisions, less sort of emotionally driven decisions. So it's an interesting one because we tend to invest less, but then we we actually perform better when we do. And there's some analysis by Finder that shows that actually 2 in 5 women, so 42%, have invested as of before as of 2024, which is actually up from just a third, 32% in 2023. So what do you guys think is contributing to this change? Why are women suddenly investing more?
Do you want to go, Charlotte?
No, I was just thinking, I think we can attribute some of this to the work that we're doing. I like to think that the people, by showing up in this space, and we're seeing more, more and more people are willing to work with us to talk about these things as well. So we're seeing more women talking about pensions. We're seeing more people that, more people that look like me or come from backgrounds like mine that are showing up and saying, yeah, I'm an investor. So I think, as much as it kind of sounds big-headed to sit here and go, yeah, I did this. I do think that we can attribute a lot of this to the work that's being done by people like us, but also the fact that we are getting more companies, more of the businesses in the financial services space working with women to put our faces on these sorts of products. So I just wanted to just jump in and go, yeah, I think we've done a good job.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, like, I remember when I first started and I was like looking for how to get started, like, where do I go next? I just remember being like, where are the people that look like me? Like, where are the young women doing it? Like that, which makes you think it's not for you. And it makes you feel like you're doing something kind of crazy and really out there. And actually, like, seeing someone that looks like you is so important. So I definitely think that's contributed to the change. I also think that the general access to better financial education online, even just in general, makes a big difference, because obviously, as we know, social media can go both ways. It can have really negative impacts if you don't use it properly, and if you compare yourself all the time. But there's so much amazing education out there, and it's, I think, reduced the barriers to entry. Like, especially like my mum, I remember speaking to my mum and being like, Mum, investing, talk to me, what we saying? And she was like, I've got nothing for you. And I was just like, okay. And if you're not brought up in those circles, if you're not born into a wealthy family or born into a situation whereby people are investing, where are you going to learn it? Because we're not being taught it in schools. You're not really being taught it when you get to like university, and then you just kind of get a job and you're told to crack on. So unless you're kind of seeking it out before, it was even harder because, you didn't have the internet. And then when you did, it was all still so new. And even when I started, and I'm sure you're both the same, because I think we all kind of started around a similar time, there were way less financial influencers and educators online. Now there are so many more. So the chances of seeing someone that looks like you teaching you how to invest from a trusted resource, I think is so much higher. And it's getting to more people. So I just think that that's really important as well, just the general sort of like financial education. And obviously there's a level of needing to discern between who to listen to and who not. And I guess, like, just touching on that, what I would say is, if you're listening to someone and the approach is like, I can make you money really quick, get rich quick, by next year you're going to have all this money, they're probably the people you want to be like, probably not going to listen to you. But learning the skill of building wealth and investing in a way that works for you is something that, like, it does take time, and you do need to educate yourself and build that confidence. But like, finding trusted influencers and educators online can be, I think, life-changing for people. And I think especially when it comes to women, they, it's that whole thing of like, if a man goes for a job, he only has to be like 30% ready for it. Whereas like a woman could be like 90% perfect for the role, and she's still questioning whether it's right for her. So it's like, we like, on average, stereotypically, we like to know more information to have that confidence. And the more people we see doing it, I think it's going to have, a bigger impact. It's the power of social media.
I think we also need to look at things like, the rise of fintech, and for me, I always thought investing was something I literally had to walk into, like the London Stock Exchange and be like, bye, and now I'm like, oh, this is an app that I get on my phone, and actually I only need a few quid to get started. And some of these things that maybe made it accessible for for men in the past because they had more disposable incomes and all these things that we've talked about. Now I'm like, oh, okay, I'm like down the park with my kids and I can check on my investments. Or, you know, like I've got a spare £5, oh, I can invest that. You know, so like Laura was saying about barriers to entry, those things are slowly being removed and we have more options. It's becoming much easier to access these things. And I think those things have very much, I think, I'm hoping at least that we will see a continuing rise in the number of women and the percentage of, you know, the female population that are investing.
Yeah, agreed. And I completely agree with your point about sort of financial creators and the sort of increase in them and increase in amount of women talking about it, because I remember when I started my channel, I couldn't really find anyone UK based that was, well, any women, UK based women who were talking about investing. There were a lot of financial creators online, but mostly women were focusing on sort of saving money, being frugal and making extra money and things like that, which is actually what I was trying to get into as well. And then when I started getting into investing and sort of researching that and trying to find creators who were talking about it, there really wasn't very many. But now there's lots of us, which is awesome. So touching on sort of being a financial creator. So have you faced any challenges in being a female creator who talks about investing and finance as a whole? Because I've had quite a few challenges in terms of, I think, the sort of stigma and the hate that comes with it. So I get a lot less of it now, I think, because, you know, I've been around for a while and it's quieted down a little bit. But when I first started, I was like getting so many hate comments that I had to grow a thick skin very quickly. And, you know, they were silly comments like, you know, criticizing my clothes and things like that, and my appearance and my clothes, and things like when I talked about things I regret buying, for example. And one of those things was an expensive handbag, which, you know, I made clear I've never bought like proper designer handbags or anything. It was just an expensive handbag. It was like DKNY or Michael Kors or something, you know. And this person went on this like long rant about how clearly I just shop at like Shoe Zone and like all these like things. And like, I clearly don't buy designer handbags and all this. I was like, what has that got to do with anything? And all of these comments sort of essentially that had nothing to do with the topic, that were clearly aiming at the fact that I'm a young woman talking about investing, and they were always from men. So I'm wondering whether you guys have had similar experiences with that.
Yeah, I definitely have. So two things, like you saying about the handbag thing, it's so interesting in my eyes, the way that feminine products and hobbies and things are viewed as like less than. Because if we think about it, a Rolex, that's an investment. You usually buy a Rolex and like it's going to retain or if not grow in value. And it's like watches, they're seen as this like really cool thing to invest in. It's a good investment. Designer handbags actually go up in value. If you get like an old school Chanel or an old school Gucci, that is going to go up in value. It will retain the, you know, its value. And yet it's like, why would you spend your money on a handbag? It's the same. So like the way that society deems the different style of, you know, I guess I don't know, collectibles or whatever we want to call it, is really interesting. And I think for me, when I first started talking about it, the first thing I noticed was, because I wasn't coming in straight away as an expert. I came in of the attitude of like, yo, I've just learned about investing. Like, why don't we know about this? And people watch me on my journey to learning and to now being really confident and now teaching people how to do it. There was no room from men for me to learn. So if I ever got anything wrong, and not even wrong, but even if I just maybe said slightly the wrong thing, or I said something that didn't really, I don't know, you know, it was slightly different in that energy, it would straight away be like, ha, got you. It's like they were trying to catch me out. And I was like, yo, I'm still learning. Like, there's a language to investing and I'm still trying to understand it myself. And now obviously, I'm way past that, but I definitely noticed on things like TikTok and Instagram, if I would post a piece of content, it would be men giving me comments like, it would be things like, oh, we've known this for ages, or like, duh. And that is what keeps women from not investing, because it's like this unspoken, you should know how to do it. There hasn't been a safe space for women to ask quote unquote stupid questions, so therefore you don't ask them. Whereas, and I'm sure we're all the same, I feel like we've created a space for women to ask all and any questions as many times as they want. So it's that kind of thing where you have to feel confident to be able to do that. And I very much love a troll comment, because I would like reply to it, or I actually made a whole YouTube video off the back of someone's comment to me, and it made a great video, and it was talking about like all of the stuff we're sort of talking about now. But I definitely would say I face that kind of lashback of like, who do you think you are? Like, there aren't many people doing this. Who are you, little blonde girl? But I'm really glad that I didn't take it on, and that I guess was like strong enough to be like, okay, well, I'm going to carry on doing this because I know that it's changing the lives of other women, and it's also changing my life. So I'm not going to let your comments stop me, sorry. But yeah, and it's a shame, isn't it? Because you want to show up online and kind of be able to talk about the thing that you want to be able to share and impact and inspire. But there are people out there, it was usually always males, kind of making you feel like you shouldn't be in this space. But I think we need people like us to be able to be like, no, we deserve to be here.
Yeah, I mean, TikTok. You mentioned TikTok. I was like, oh,
Good old TikTok.
I think I was one of the first UK females to start talking about investing on TikTok, and in a lot of ways, I saw a huge amount of people following me off the back of that. But also, I went through this huge roller coaster of a journey of people absolutely nitpicking every word and comment, and I got comments about your voice sounds weird, your hair is weird, like what's that in the background? You're like, oh my goodness, like forget about all of that. But also just trying to criticize, you can't talk about this, you can't, what do you know? And you're just like, hang on a minute, like I'm coming here in this space talking about the same things that my male counterparts are talking about, and they're like, yeah, like go get it. And actually I'm probably talking, I was talking about investing, and I was very much putting things like, risk warnings and, all the things that you have to do, like your investments can go down as well as up, and, like past performance isn't, an indicator of like future results and all of these sorts of things. I'm saying all of these things. And then there's some dude on TikTok that's just going, buy this stock and you can make loads of money. And everyone's just going, yes, mate, you're amazing. And sometimes it was less about what was said and more about what wasn't said. Where were those people that were cheerleading and going, this is, sound, a financial education. This is what we need as women. And actually, I think that a lot of my struggle in the early days was particularly on TikTok. Instagram, I felt has always been a bit of a safer space for women to talk about these concepts, whereas I think the whole like For You page of TikTok was just chucking you out in front of like millions of people that aren't necessarily your people, and so you end up being exposed to sort of different types of people, which in some ways is good, in some ways is bad. But there was a huge kind of vulnerability for me to step into this kind of new space where I didn't necessarily have that community of people like yourselves to go, like, yes, Charlotte, this is exactly what we need to hear. So I think it has been a journey, and yes, there's been all of those negative comments. But what I think I'm enjoying seeing more now that we have more people in the space is the things that should have been said being said, and we support each other when we have a positive message that supports people, particularly in the investing space, and I think that really helps too.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, as you guys were talking, I remembered, so when you were talking about sort of nitpicking and all this stuff, I was like, oh my God, PTSD, just all the comments flashing back. But one of the things I remembered actually was some of the comments I used to get about the size of my portfolio. And it was kind of criticism that, but what is this? That you've got like a few £1,000s in your investments, like, why are you even talking about it? Like, that's why I'm talking about it, you know, like this is, I never tried to claim I was an expert. I never tried to claim that I had huge amounts of investments. I was very clear from the beginning on my YouTube channel, saying beginner investing, you know, and the fact that all these guys were sort of coming out there and going like, well, you know, you only have a few thousand or 5,000 or however much, you know, along the journey. And it made me really frustrated because at the time it kind of made me feel like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about it. And the only thing that sort of pushed me through and kept me going were the positive comments. They were the Instagram direct messages of people going, you know what, like, thank you so much. You've changed my life in this way, that way. I did this and that, and this is how it worked out. And me going like, okay, I can do this. Like, I can deal with the trolls and stuff. So, but I don't think, I haven't seen anyone post those sorts of comments on male creators going like, well, your portfolio is very small. Why are you even talking about it? Like,
yeah, I think it also kind of leans into the whole all or nothing narrative. So it's like, unless you've got thousands to invest, what's the point? And, you know, if we think back to the comments that we just made around why women might be investing less if we have less to start with, like one of the biggest things I get from my community is like, investing is for rich people. I don't have enough to get started. And with new apps and fintech providers, you can literally get started with like £5-10. And I always say, it's not the thing that's going to make you a millionaire. It's not going to be the thing that makes you the most wealthy version of yourself that you want to be. But it's about building a habit and building confidence in your own ability and understanding your own risk profile so that you can get started. And I think that attitude of those comments that you got, Anna, where it's like, oh, look at the size of your portfolio. It's like, hang on a second, isn't this amazing that I'm investing regardless of how much I'm doing? Why are you trying to put me off from doing it when actually I found a way that really works for me and I'm going to build up my confidence over time? So I think you have, and luckily, you know, all three of us here, we're still championing it, we're still teaching people, but there are some people that would be completely, you know, some women that would be put off by that. And I think that, again, it creates this narrative that like, it's a boys' club, it's not for you if you don't have much. And then you're in this weird position where you're like, well, I don't have that much to invest. What's the point of getting started? But we all know that it's so much better to get started with a little bit and build it up over time than it is to not start at all. And I think creating that safe space for women to know that it's more about habit, financial behaviors, knowing that you can grow it over time, and really understanding like the concepts of compound interest is so much more important than chucking thousands into investments and jumping on like trends and hypes just because there's a male creator telling you to do that. So I think, I think I can definitely relate to that.
I think there's just listening to you speak, I was thinking about how actually as a woman, I relate to different content than to men. And actually, you know, in teaching, and you know, like, I teach maths, and it's known that like girls, they have to know the ins and outs of a topic in order to feel that they fully understand it. Whereas boys typically are like, tell me how to do it, that's fine. Like, they don't have to understand it. So actually the content that we need to put out as women needs to be it needs to be different from the content that's directed at men. Men often look up to, and I'm really generalizing, I hate completely generalizing, but typically, you know, on average, men are quite happy to look at people that have reached that pinnacle of success. And this is where we've had some, you know, slightly shady characters have reached huge amounts of fame because they've just been like, look at me, I'm a millionaire and I've got a six-pack and all of these sorts of things. You know, and men are inspired by that because it's like the end goal is inspirational. They're like, that's the thing I want, tell me how to do it. Whereas as a woman, I'm much more likely in the fitness world to want to look at somebody who is a little bit on the chubby side, but they're showing up every day and they're going, oh no, I had a chocolate milkshake, I'll try again tomorrow. And I think that is part of that, knowing the how, knowing the journey. So maybe what we're seeing is these male content creators, and you're not quite, you're not there. What gives you permission is actually, well, no, this is the content that is more relatable to other women. So go look for your multi-millionaire six-pack guys, and we'll stick with the people that are narrating their journey, because that shows us the process, and that's what we need to learn and feel comfortable with the concept.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think I hosted a women in investing panel in October, and one of the ladies on the panel was she was in her maybe 40s, 50s, and she's a VC, so she invests in a lot of businesses. She runs a female-led investing syndicate, so she onboards women and they invest as a group. So that it is angel investing, so it's investing in businesses, not like stocks and stuff. But she was like, what's really interesting is the way in which women build confidence when they're investing as a group is so interesting. And they all feel more confident when they're there together, sharing ideas. What do you think? What's your take on this? And they're learning and doing it together. That's the power in either doing something in a group, talking to your friends about it. Like my closest girlfriends didn't have a clue about investing. I started talking about it and sharing with them. And at first it was like, oh, I'd still, is it just because you're in the finance world? And then over time, they got more comfortable with it. And now we have conversations about investing all the time. They're investing, and it's kind of the power in doing it as a group. And again, we're generalizing, but I know I definitely feel more confident when I'm chatting with other women that know about it. And I feel very well educated and read on it because I find it interesting, but also the whole thing of feeling like I want to be an expert in it and I want to know as much as possible. But that then you can bounce ideas off of each other and you can talk about it as a group, and it's like this judgment-free zone that kind of lifts everybody up. And I think that that's really powerful as well, especially when it either comes to real life but also being a creator. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I knew this question we would have the longest discussion on because I was thinking this is going to be something we're all really passionate about, isn't it? Because it's also sort of close to our hearts, isn't it? And I guess that sort of touches on my next question, which is, why do you think representation in investing is important? Does seeing more women investing encourage you to invest? Do you have any ideas to help this in the future?
Yeah, I definitely, I feel like the more I see women doing amazing things, the more I am inspired and uplifted by that. So, and this happens in all fields, but for things where we've been so underrepresented historically, it just lights me up when I see more women showing up and talking about these things. And sometimes I have a moment and I'll sit there and I'll be like, why is there not more women talking about investing? And I'm like, oh, that's my job. Wait a minute, oh, this is what I do. I have to show up. And I think it's I look at my girls. They're 6 and 8, and I want them to grow up with people like me, surrounding them. I want their social media. I want, whatever comes after social media to be full of people that they can relate to, people that, that live in places like they live, or, with, similar friendship groups that like similar things, that look like them, that talk like them, to inspire them to do great things. And, finance is an area of our lives we cannot escape. It's not like you can just go, I'm not interested in money, I'll just opt out of that. It's not it's not like fantasy books where you can just never read one. It's something that all of our lives are touched by money, and we can have positive and negative experiences that shape our lives. So having women in this space, but also having queer people in this space, having Black people, people, with disabilities, people with ADHD, people with autism, all of these people need to be showing up and representing. And, I can only represent what I represent, but I can absolutely champion other people to show up in those spaces and try and give them a leg up into spaces that maybe I have more privilege. But it's so that we don't leave anyone behind, so that people can people like my kids and my friends' kids, and even people older than us as well. There's I'm just spent yesterday evening chatting to my mum and dad about pensions, because they don't really understand them. And I'm like, let me give you some insights. Like, we have a job for all generations to show up in these spaces. In terms of what can be done, I think, XTB are doing a great job by actually, using our voices here. But we need to continue to use these voices. Rethink the language that we use. Like, I think we're seeing a huge shake-up. I mentioned things like fintech and the rise of different apps and all of these sorts of things. And we are seeing a shift in accessibility, but, not only from a convenience perspective, but also from a language perspective. Like, finance doesn't feel as scary. Suddenly we had, digital banks burst into the space, and suddenly everyone was just like, I can just shove this in a space or a pot or a blah, blah, blah. And, and it just became a whole different concept. And I think we need to carry on doing that, so that, women, and all of these other sections of society feel like they can access these things, because it's in a language, in a format, in a medium that is accessible to them.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think, like, if we think back maybe 5-10 years ago, the way in which mental health was spoken about in society, it was very like hush hush. It wasn't really understood. Going to therapy, people thought you were mad. But now, and I think this is part of like a shift in generation as well, it's cool to go to therapy. Like, mental health is being spoken about so much more. It's not taboo anymore. There's wellness programs in brands and businesses, and it's still got a way to go. But I feel like financial well-being and investing being a part of that, it's just on the kind of upwards trajectory of getting more normalized. The more people that talk about it, the more representation we have, the more brands that get on board. I think that all of that stuff, it takes time. It's not just going to shift, but I definitely think there is a shift. And I think that's so positive. And I think also, like, we inspire up and down. So my mum, who is older than me, obviously, and then I have my sister who is younger than me, and we talk about investing. And I know that since me doing what I do as a financial creator, talking about investing, she's now started investing. So even though, she's a lot closer to retirement than I am, she has a lot less time that she can spend in the market, she understands the concept, and she's like, oh, cool, I can do something with my money. And I definitely think the generation above us of, women, where they had less control over their money, they were having to rely on male counterparts for mortgages and, all this kind of stuff. So they didn't get included in that conversation. They're also learning about it now. It's just that they're older than us. So it's like that we're inspiring both ways. And I think that that's so beautiful, like that can happen. And it's going to have kind of, I think, like a ripple effect over time. But I think representation is so important, because whether we like it or not, when you see people that look like you doing something that you want to do, it just normalizes it, and it makes it so much more accessible. And I think that, and like Charlotte touched on, all the different intersectionalities of like race, sexuality, like seeing people in a space that you thought wasn't for you, to see someone look like you doing it, it can literally just be the catalyst for you getting started or learning. And I've definitely had, so like with my investing course, it is for women. I've had about 75 people do it, and we're in a WhatsApp group and everyone chats and asks questions. And one of the things that came up recently was there was a male creator who makes amazing content, but it came from a very male gaze of like the assumption that certain pieces of language or certain pieces of knowledge were just expected to be known. And they brought the content to the group and was like, this seems interesting, but can you just break it down for me? Because I don't really understand. And we broke it down in the group chat, and they were like, oh, okay. But they didn't feel confident enough to go into that male-led space and ask those questions. So I think having female-led spaces is really important for, I guess, confidence, comfortability, accessibility, all of the things.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I would take it one step further as well, because I think it's not only important to have people who look like you, so sort of whether it's, race, whether it's gender or any of those attributes, but I think also the sort of economic situation you're in is really important, because for me, even if I did find a female creator talking about investing, I'm more likely to relate to one who's in a similar financial situation to me generally than I am to like a millionaire online. So, without naming names, there are financial creators who, openly talk about being millionaires or like super wealthy and everything else. And I never relate to them at all. Whereas if I'm watching someone who is talking about working, being in debt, and this is how they're paying it off, and then this is how they're investing and going through that and making extra money, I'm way more likely to follow that person, because I identify with them. I'm like, oh, what can I learn? Like, how can I maybe pull myself up to their level, because I can see they're maybe a couple steps ahead of me, but not miles ahead of me, where I'm like, oh, I'm never going to get there, am I? So it just makes it a bit more achievable, if that makes sense.
I think there are a lot of lifestyle things as well. For me, I seek out people that are, their parents. That's important to me, because I need to know that I can achieve that and also be a mum, and because that's a financial responsibility that is in addition to everybody else. Also for me, I see a lot of creators that are coming out of London, for example, and actually Norfolk is very different. It was interesting. There was I think we were all in this WhatsApp group, but there was a chat, and somebody was talking about like Starling versus Monzo, and I was like, nobody in Norfolk has heard of them. Like, that's not like, everyone's still using like high street banks around here. So actually, those sorts of lifestyle aspects are important for us when we show up as creators to talk about, like, what sort of things are we interested in? What other things have we got going on? What are our financial responsibilities? Are we looking after young kids? Are we looking after, elderly parents? Are we homeowners? Are we renting? Are we, like, what other things do we have going on in our lives? Because all of those contribute to our story, and also how people relate to us.
Yeah. And I also think, like, I show up in the space as like a 30-year-old single woman living in London, and I've got like a single girl community that's got like 200 women in it. And one of the conversations that comes up is like, how on earth am I going to get on the property ladder as a single person? And it's like, you don't want to get a partner just so that you can get on the property ladder. Like, that's crazy. Like, and if you happen to get with someone who happens to have loads of money, we love, but you don't go after that. You want to be financially independent and confident in your own right. But like, if in the UK, everyone is so obsessed with buying property, but it's so much harder to get on the property ladder as a single person. So it's like investing, I show up in a way that's like, right now, personally, for me, I'm not saving to buy a house. I want the freedom to go traveling with my business, but the way that I am building wealth is through the stock market. So if there are people that look like me, that are similar age to me, they're single, it's like, oh, okay, I don't have to worry as much. So I think that's my version of like that, because I don't have children. I don't really relate to that. But there are people that are like single women, and they're like, oh no, I'm kind of worried about my money. And especially with I did a podcast on like the cost of being single and like all the different things that you have to take into account by not having a partner. It's like highlighting all the options. And I think because we're financial creators, like, we find this stuff interesting. So we're doing the research, we're learning, and part of our job is to then curate and share the knowledge in an accessible and understandable way, so that they're not having to go and do all the work of all the itty bitty bits, but we're giving them options based on who they are as people and like what your community actually wants. And I think that's really powerful.
And that's why we just need all sorts of different people talking about it, because my community will attract a unique set of people. Even if somebody is like a mum, and has lots of similar things, my unique spin on this will attract different people for different reasons, and that's why we need that representation, just from just a huge cross section of people.
Yeah, and this is also a good point of, I think some people, they think about getting into maybe the financial creator space and education and things like that, but they think, oh, it's oversaturated. There's so many creators now. And I'm like, well, okay, but could you bring something new to the space? Like, what's your unique selling point, if you will? How are you different? Maybe it is that you're single, 30 in London, or maybe it is that you are a mother of 2 children, or that you are a single mother of children, or that you are lots and lots in debt, and maybe you talk about that, or whatever your situation is. You know, chances are it's probably different to most of the creators because everyone is unique. So I think it's really important that the more of us sort of get out there and talk about our experiences, the more we will encourage people to get started with investing. So sort of to wrap it up, I guess, in terms of all of the talk about getting started or beginner investing and all of that, what would be any advice that you would give to women who would want to start investing?
I would say just give it a go. I think it's one of those things, you know, like when you start a new job and you're like, I ain't got a clue what I'm doing. You know, like you figure it out as you go. You go in and, you know, you don't know what you're doing on the first day. But then somebody goes, oh, would you want to start off? I'll show you how to use this system. You can learn on the job with investing to a certain extent. And you know, one of the things that I talk about in my spaces is like going, okay, why don't you just find a few quid, like an amount that you're comfortable, you know, like maybe you'd have spent 50 quid, you're going for a Nando's, you know, or something like that. Like, don't go for that Nando's. Let's just learn about investing a little bit, you know, find a platform that, you know, appeals to you on some level and give it a little bit of a go. You've heard these things, you know, you know, like if you're interested, you've probably either seen someone like us talking about these things or you've read a book about it. So you're probably going into it with a little bit of an understanding. If you haven't, go back and do those things. And if not, like, why don't you just give it a go? You know, like worst case, you might kind of like lose that money. You know, like it's highly unlikely. You lose 50 quid, but you were going to spend that on like your meal out anyway. So, you know, like, okay, it's a small amount of money, just give it a try. And you will learn so much, not only about how to use the platforms and the mechanics of investing, but also about yourself and your mindset and your level of risk and, you know, what you are and aren't prepared to do, you know, whether the platform is easy and, you know, like all of these sorts of things. Like you learn so much about your own relationship with investing on that journey as well. And then when you build that confidence, you can kind of take it a little bit further.
Yeah. And I think what I would add to that is like, so first of all, like when it comes to learning, find out how you like to learn. So you've got like visual learner, audio learner. There's 2 others, but I can't remember what they are. But like, do you like to read? Do you like to listen to podcasts? Do you need to like watch a course? Do you need to like just try it yourself? So knowing your learning style is so important because that's going to help with how you digest information. Then you can go out and look for those styles and go, is it I'm going to listen to a couple of podcasts on it? Is it that I'm going to read a book on it? Is it that I'm going to go and take someone's course? Like find that way, then find that route to it. And then I am really big on mindset and like understanding your relationship with money and like the power of, just got a little thumbs up. The power of journaling is crazy because you can really get into like your subconscious and understand what's going on. So for me, I was doing a lot of journaling around the time that I started investing, and I was really trying to understand like, what is it that is holding me back? Like, what's the fear? Is it the fear that I don't know enough? Is it the fear that I'm worried I'm going to lose money? Is it the fear that I'm going to get it wrong? And, you know, one of my biggest beliefs was that money's hard to make. So that really fell into the category of investing because it felt too easy. It felt like I was missing this like secret sauce that everybody knew how to do and I was being left out of the club. So like just journaling on it and working on your relationship with money, understanding your own risk profile is going to really help when you make that first step. And what I ended up doing is it took me a year to get started. And then classically, I did it and I was like, why didn't I do this a year ago? But I had to go through that own journey. It's absolutely fine. So do those things. And then, yeah, like when it comes to like choosing platforms and picking investments, I think once you've done enough research to have a knowledge and you understand the language and you understand, you know, the difference between like a stock and an index fund and long-term investing and understanding what your own investment goals are, like Charlotte says, just get started. Like literally it could be £5 and you can like play, but the emotional side of it is really important. So definitely read. There's an amazing book called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, which talks about the emotional side, like your mindset and why you shouldn't let FOMO or fear take over. And that is a really nice like bolster up to the practical side of getting started investing. So I would highly recommend that book.
Yeah, and I would add, if anyone sort of doesn't want to kick off with real money, you know, you can use virtual accounts because there are places like XTB who offer the ability to play with fake money, if you will. So, you know, if you want to maybe get used to the platform, get used to, you know, how it works. Okay, do I literally just click here and then it happens? Like, how do I sell? How do I buy? Like, what do I do? I think for a lot of people, having the ability to try it out without using their own money is really important. But I agree, just getting started generally with a small amount is the best thing you can do. Because when you're playing with money that's not real, you don't get that whole, how would you feel if that actually dropped by 30%? Are you going to panic? Because then you maybe shouldn't be really investing, because if you're going to panic every time your investments go down, all you're going to do is keep losing money. Because I think a lot of people, when they're starting out, they don't really appreciate the fact that there's always cycles. You know, I'm pretty sure there's not a stock in the history of the world that doesn't have ups and downs, right? So you get some worse news, some worse performance, a general pandemic or whatever it is, and suddenly things crash, and it's not the end of the world. You know, as long as you're sensible with your investments and you're either just investing in ETFs, which are safer, or if you've taken the plunge and you feel confident making decisions about individual stocks, then as long as you've done your research and you're happy that that's a good investment, just because it's dropped by 30%, you know, maybe have a look. Has something happened that's made you change your mind that this is no longer a good company? Okay, then maybe sell. Maybe something really has changed. But chances are it's just a bit of bad news that has hit the press, and all of a sudden it's crashed, and in 6 months it'll be back up again, and you'll regret it. So I think those will be sort of my few cents, if you will. So
yeah. And also just to add to that, like for me, I see myself as like a really boring long-term investor. Like I don't really invest in individual stocks. Mine is like index funds, ETFs, broad markets, all the way. I'm going to like hold on to my investments for like 20, 30 years. That's my plan, because I would probably say I'm quite low risk. And even though I feel very confident in the knowledge, the way that I manage and invest my money is that kind of like boring, slow, sustainable way, which for me is best. And I think knowing that there's a lot of connotations attached to investing, that it is risky, scary, all of that kind of thing. But when it comes to like investing, it's like investing is more just the concept, because it's like, are you investing in stocks? Are you investing in Bitcoin? Are you investing in index funds? And knowing your own risk profile and also your time horizon. Like my mum doesn't have she probably can't be as risky as I can, because I've got much longer to ride the market. And I think a lot of the books that you'll read, podcasts you'll listen to, they do end up saying the same stuff in a roundabout way. And I think the whole knowing your risk profile and getting started small and knowing you're in it for a long time is a lot more powerful. And that's why, I sort of champion that side of it for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, when I talk to them, don't actually realize that most pensions are invested in the stock market. this
Yeah.
seems to be a surprise to people, like, because when they're like, oh, but it's too risky, and I'm like, is it? Like your pensions are invested in it. What? And okay, it's most likely, you know, index funds and all of this stuff. It's probably not in Bitcoin, but people don't realize that there are sort of safer ways to invest, because obviously you can never be 100% sure. But, you know, investing in a whole market fund, or, you know, the S&P 500 or something, is far, far, far safer than investing in just one company. You know, my grandma, I like telling this story because I'm like, this just illustrates this point, which is, you know, she started talking about wanting to get started investing, which, you know, 80-year-old woman, right? I was just saying, like, look, please, before you do anything, let's just sit down. Let's have a chat, okay? Just, let's do that. Because I was like, you can't invest everything in one company, right? Like, just don't do that. And then she started talking about the Polish sort of equivalent of Shell, let's say, right? So their big sort of oil company. And she was like, oh, but, you know, they're merging with this other company, which means, you know, when they merge, the stock price will go up. And I'm like, well, if you know that, chances are the stock market knows that too, which probably means it's already priced into the price. And she sort of completely ignored me and went and invested all of her savings, all of her savings into this one company. And it's been like over a year and a half now, and she's down like 40%. And I'm just like, I tried.
Mum, I told you.
Yeah, I told you. I think that's why I like the whole, when it comes to learning, like if people say to me, it's boring, or like, I don't understand it, or like, oh, how long is it going to take me to learn? And I'm like, you spend how many hours on Instagram a day? You spend how long, you know, reading fantasy books? Like, a little bit of learning in the grand scheme of your life, even if it takes you a couple of weeks or a couple of hours, you know, a little bit of learning, the return on investment of knowledge and upskilling is wild. And for me, I'm a stats girl. So anytime I see a stat, so for example, like, you know, the longer you invest in the stock market through index funds, the percentage in which you're going to make money versus lose money goes up dramatically. Even just seeing that, for me, gave me more confidence in like knowing that index funds and ETFs were the way for me because of my risk profile. And the learning side of it is so important, but you have to be open-minded enough to learn from the people around you, to learn from trusted resources, because that's going to be the thing that helps you make educated decisions. I think where people go wrong is jumping on hypes, investing in alignment with their emotions, thinking that they know everything. And that's where, yeah, it can get messy. Oh, your poor grandma.
Just like, I really tried. Like, there was nothing else I could
so much you can do.
Maybe she needed to see some other 80-year-old woman tell her.
Yeah.
She needs representation.
She needs to become an influencer. Start telling people.
Maybe it's just her destiny to be an inspirational story for others to learn not to make the same mistake. Yes. Okay, so we have been talking for over an hour. So is there anything else that you guys feel like we should sort of add, make a final sort of point to add that we've missed out on and haven't really covered?
I just wanted to say, you know, we're obviously knowledgeable about this, and we know that we are, you know, we're talking to people that know what they're talking about as well. And there's a part of me that's just conscious that there's somebody watching this that is maybe, and you've talked about like ETFs and index funds and things like that. And I kind of wanted to reiterate that I was that person going, you're what? Like a few years ago. And I don't want the fact that maybe we've talked about some terms that are, you know, very much in the investing space, for people to consider that as, you know, a reason why they shouldn't start. And actually, you know, head over to our spaces. We talk about these things, we demystify all of these things, and it's okay to sit and listen to something like this and only understand, you know, a percentage of it. You know, there might be something that you've watched here that's been a nice takeaway, and you're like, oh, actually, I do want to learn about investing, and it's okay that I don't know what an index fund is or that an ETF, but actually, this is the first step in that learning. So I kind of just wanted to reiterate that if we've in any way, made it look like we exist in a world that is, a financing space where we have a knowledge that you need to have. It's no, we have been those people that didn't have that knowledge, and we were inspired by something just like this, or a book, or a podcast, that made us go, you know what, this is the catalyst for me to further my knowledge and actually start looking into investing. So yeah, don't be put off if there's anything like that.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, like, there's an amazing book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, and it talks about the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And I would say I very much have a growth mindset, which is the belief that my traits, my personality, my intelligence, my skill set can change. Everything is changeable, which is fact, because our brains have neuroplasticity, which means they can change. So hearing this, like Charlotte says, if you've had any language that you're like, I don't really understand that, it's having the belief that you can learn. It's having the belief that I might not know now, but I can learn. It's just like starting a new job. You go in and everyone's using acronyms and new systems, and you're like, but then within a couple of months, it's like second nature to you, and someone else new starts and you're like, don't worry, you'll get it. That's kind of same energy. So just trusting that you have the capability to learn, and that you're not just going to come out of the womb knowing it. You have to show up in spaces, put a bit of time and effort in, listen to conversations like this, and just trust that you can get knowledgeable in this area too.
I love that analogy. I love the new job analogy, because it's so accurate, so true. And I recently sort of went through it last year, so it's fresh in my mind, that feeling of like, oh my God, I'm never gonna get this. Like, what is this? What are you doing? What is this process? And yeah, it was like that actually with investing. So you are very right. Everything is learnable, and it's never too late. I have, because I teach English as one of my side jobs, and my oldest student is 55, and she is learning like completely from scratch. Like it's not like she's just trying to remember it, polish it up, or anything like that. No, learning from scratch at 55. So I think never too late, whether it's investing, a language, anything else. So yeah. Thank you so much for joining me on this webinar. Thank you to XTB for having us, and thank you to everyone who's watching this as well. So it's been a pleasure chatting to you girls, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you.